Hi, welcome back to Bankerbell's Yarning. Today we're going to go over crochet for knitters. So we won't review the different types of yarn and how to gauge your sizes, because it's pretty much the same when it comes to crochet as it is for knitting, except the recommended hook size on the back here. If you see the knitting here, it's a 5mm. On the wrapper it does say a 5mm as well for crochet. Now I tend to not completely adhere to this depending on the pattern that I'm following, but a good rule of thumb when it comes to choosing a hook size when there's only a knitting recommendation on the label is to go a size or two up in order to get the same look. But again, depending on what it is you're doing, a lot of patterns call for you to do a gauge swatch, so follow that in order to get the same look and texture and sizing as the recommended one for the patterns. So a little bit on tools. It's pretty simple. You have different size hooks for different size threads and yarn. So these little guys here are obviously very tiny. They're meant for smaller weight yarns as well as for threads. So here's some other different ones here. So these are double-ended hooks. So you have one size on one side and one size on the other side, and as you can see it is written on here as to what the sizes are. So these are done in millimeter sizes, so there's a 5mm and a 7mm. Other hooks will have a sizing in both your millimeters as well as your actual hook designation. So here's a K101/2 or a 6.5mm. Okay, and you can get them in metal, you can get them in bamboo, which I like doing when I'm doing small Tunisian work. These are also very lightweight, so if you have a problem with tendonitis or arthritis or carpal tunnel, this is a great option. I've also done a few of my own handles here on the smaller hooks, just because I find that working with the smaller hooks, it tends to give me pain in my hands where the hook slides against it. You can also get plastic hooks. I do prefer metal and wood though. So this one here is actually a completely different model. As you can see, the hook itself is shaped differently than this one. It's a preference as to which hooks you prefer. I don't particularly care for these ones. I find that they tend to snag on the yarn a little too much, and they don't slide as well as this style of hook. So let's get started then. I'm going to go over some super simple stuff. We can do more advanced videos later. This just is going to get you started. So, basics. Here is yarn. You're going to do a slip knot. So you take your tail and you go over and then through. Now there's lots of different ways of doing slip knots, whatever way you're most comfortable with. Now we insert into the hook, comes up. And to chain, we very, very simply yarn over. So that means bringing the yarn over the hook like this, and you pull that through. So we're making a series of slip stitches or slip knots along the length of the yarn. Nice and simple. Okay. So in any pattern you would chain however many the pattern is calling for. For your first stitch, we're going to do a single crochet. So again, nice and simple. If you see here, there are two pieces of thread on the top, two pieces of yarn on the top and one on the bottom here. When you're starting out your pattern in the chain stitches, you want to try and get both of those top pieces on your hook like this. Okay, then you don't get weird holes and stuff like that. And then we simply get a hold of the yarn like this and pull it through like that. And then we yarn over and we pull through both. And we're back to one loop on our hook. We'll do it again. Go through both. Yarn over like this and pull through. And we're going to keep going down the chain. Yarn over and pull through. And yarn over, pull through. In, over, here we go. And then our last chain right here. Super simple. Look at that. And we are at the end of our chain. Now, similar to knitting, you are going to turn your work. So we turn it this way so that we can see the back of it. If you're in the round, then obviously you're not going to be turning, you're just going to continue on with the next stitch. Now, most patterns at the beginning of the second or third or however many rows, it will call for a chain. So again, you just yarn over and pull through. We'll do it and I'll do it again. So we yarn over and we pull through. Now, depending on the stitch that you're going to be working next will determine how many chains that you're going to make. So for a single crochet, we're going to do one chain. I prefer to do one chain when we do a half double crochet and two for a double crochet. But again, it's a preference thing or whatever the pattern calls for. When these chain stitches are the first stitch in the pattern, then you want to do the number recommended chains. When it's not part counted as a stitch in the pattern, then do whatever number of chains you're comfortable with, and you're going to go into this very first stitch here. And the same as when we were doing through the chain, we put it through both loops. We pull through like this, we yarn over, and we pull through. Now, if the first stitch is your chain stitch, you chain and then you skip that particular stitch, and this one here will be your first stitch. If you stitch into that first stitch beside the chain that we did last time, then you'll have too many stitches in your row. And then again, we're going to go to the end of the row. So through this hole right here, put like this, and then yarn over and pull through both. In, pull through, yarn over, pull through both. Again, in, yarn over, and pull through both. When you come to your last stitch, you have to be very careful to make sure that you go into the right spot. So if your pattern calls for a chain at the beginning of your row, then you go into the top of the chain. Otherwise, you go into the stitch right before the chain, again, both loops, pull through, yarn over, and pull through two. So on the next row, we are going to go over half double crochets. So I'm chaining one, turning over, right? So we have the other side of our project. For half double crochets, we're going to yarn over before we make the stitch. This is what gives us the height that we need for that particular stitch. So again, I chained one. We're going to go into this first stitch because we're not counting the chain as a stitch. We're going to yarn over and we're going to insert into that first stitch, pick up our yarn, pull it through. And again, in order to close the stitch, we need to yarn over and pull through. For this particular one, we are going to pull through all three loops that are on your hook. So yarn over and pull through all three of them. So this gives half, again, the height of a single crochet, but not the full height of a double crochet. So we're going to do it again, yarn over, insert into our first stitch, pull through, yarn over, and pull through all three. And again, Now I am right-handed. I have not left-handed crocheted in many, 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 many years. I learned from a woman who was left-handed, happened to be my grandmother. And I learned mirror. So I did what she did as she did it, as though I was looking in a mirror. Okay, and because we chained at the beginning of the last row for our first stitch, we are going to go into that chain. If I can get my hook in there. Of course, it's being stubborn. I pulled the chain a little bit too tight, so it's being difficult. And we're going to pull through and pull through all two. All right, so that gives us a nice even side. That's why we need to pay attention as to whether we're going into a stitch or if the chain is considered a stitch, because otherwise you'll end up with this weird disappearing set of rows. It's great for making triangles, but not always what you want to do for a rectangular or square project. So the next row we're going to do some double crochets. So we're going to chain 2 in order to give us a better height. Some people like to chain 3. That's just what they like. So we're going to do the same as a half double crochet. We're going to yarn over and we're going to insert our hook into the stitch. We're going to grab the yarn and pull it through. And again, we have 3 loops on our hook, just like we did with the half double crochet. We're going to yarn over, and this time instead of pulling through all 3 loops, we're going to pull through just 2 of them. Okay, and then we're going to yarn over and we're going to pull through the last 2. So that gives us a double. So there's your 2 and then your 2. So that's a double crochet. Again, we're going to yarn over. We're going to insert our hook into the stitch, pull the loop through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Yarn over, insert, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. We do that to the end of our row. Yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And our last stitch, we're going to go in like that, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So you can see the height difference there between our single crochet, it's just little bitty stitches, and then our half double crochet, which is halfway between our single and our double has a nice height to it. Okay. And the increments can go 3, 4, 5. It's just the number of times that you do a yarn over. So we'll do a triple just to show what's going on and the difference between the stitches. So we're going to chain 3. That puts our hook where we need it to be for height. So for a triple, we're going to yarn over twice. So we start with 3 loops on our hook. Insert it into the stitch, pull through a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over. Now we have 3, pull through 2, yarn over, and pull through 2 to close the stitch. So as you can see, that gives you even more height than the double crochet does. So again, yarn over twice, insert into the stitch, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. See, nice height. Do it again, twice, insert, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And we'll just go to the end of the row now. Super simple. Gotta remember that second one. Triple crochet is not something I do a lot of. My patterns haven't been calling for the height that it gives. And again, into our last stitch. So a lot of my yarning over is muscle memory. And around and up. And there we are. So there's our triple crochets. Nice and simple. And you can see where the chain is. You can eliminate that by doing standing stitches, which we'll go over in another video. This is just the basics on how to get you started. You can, at this point, be able to do pretty much any simple pattern because you have the basic stitches that you need. So, super simple. If you have any questions that you wish me to answer when it comes to crocheting for knitters, then just let me know. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure you give me a like and a share and all that wonderful, wonderful stuff. Okay, ciao.